Have you ever felt like there's a part of you that's just broken? Something that needs to be fixed? Well, today we're diving into a therapeutic approach that completely challenges that whole idea. It's called Affective Resonance Therapy, or ART for short, and it starts with a really powerful thought. What if our suffering isn't a bug, but actually a feature?
And really, this one question is the key to the whole thing. It asks us to stop treating our distress, our anxiety, our grief, our anger, as some kind of error code that we need to delete. Instead, it invites us to start listening to it, to treat it as a vital message. This is a huge shift in perspective, so let's break down what it really means.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at the old way of thinking that art is pushing back against. Then, we'll explore its core philosophy, which is all about integration. From there, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of its three main pillars. And finally, we'll see where this whole therapeutic journey is meant to take us.
To really get what art is, we first have to understand the world it's reacting against. You see, for decades, so much of therapy has been rooted in this really powerful and well-intentioned desire to just fix what feels broken inside us.
This is what we call the fixing paradigm. It's an idea we've pretty much inherited from the medical model. It tends to see the mind as something like a complex machine, maybe a computer with some buggy code that needs to be debugged, or an engine with a broken part that needs to be repaired or just flat out replaced.
So in this model, things like anxiety or depression, they're not seen as intelligent adaptations or important signals from our body. Nope. They're framed as the problem itself, as enemies we have to defeat. And look, while that can sometimes help, it can also, without meaning to, make us feel even more fragmented because it basically forces us to go to war with parts of ourselves.
And this, right here, really gets to the heart of the difference. The old fixing paradigm looks at your distress and calls it dysfunction, a problem that needs to be corrected. But ART looks at that exact same distress and sees a signal, an opportunity for connection, for integration. It's a totally different goal. One path is about cutting parts of you away, the other is about bringing them all home.
So if art isn't about fixing, then what is it about? Well, its entire foundation is built on a completely different philosophy, and that is integration.
At its core, ART is all about integration. The goal isn't to get rid of or suppress or correct parts of yourself. It's about building connections between all the different aspects of your experience. It actually honors the protective reason behind even our most difficult symptoms, seeing them as old survival strategies that were, at one point, absolutely necessary, but just aren't serving us anymore.
This whole philosophy really stands on three core beliefs. First, that the body doesn't lie. Its sensations are the raw data of our experience. Second, that healing isn't just random. It has to follow the brain's own bottom-up wiring. And third, that our sense of self is a story, and the ultimate act of healing is learning how to become the author of that story. Okay, so this brings us to the practical how of ART. And this is cool. Instead of just being a random collection of techniques, it provides this unified, multi-layered framework. It's like a comprehensive map of the human experience. So rather than seeing our inner world as this big jumble of problems we have to solve one by one, ART gives us a cohesive system. It organizes everything into three interwoven domains. This map gives both the therapist and the client a clear, shared understanding of the path forward. The first and most foundational pillar is energy. And this isn't just some vague metaphor. We're talking about the real biological resources of our nervous system. Think of it like your internal battery level. This pillar helps us answer that crucial moment-to-moment question, do I have the capacity to deal with this right now? And the best part is, the answer is always okay, without any judgment. The second pillar is sequence. This one is all about respecting the brain's natural, bottom-up wisdom. It basically says you can't just talk your way into a new belief if your body is still stuck in a state of alarm. So this pillar provides a structured order for healing, starting with physical safety and regulation. It makes sure the work happens at a pace your nervous system can actually handle. And that brings us to the final pillar, narrative. This is the interface where we make sense of our lives. It's where all the raw data from our energy system and all the processed experience from the sequence finally get woven together into the story of who we are. It's at this level that we actually author our sense of self. So here's a great little summary of how these three pillars work together as a system. You've got energy, that's the engine. It's the foundational capacity you need to even start the car. Then you have sequence. That's the process itself, the roadmap that transforms raw, overwhelming experience. And finally, narrative is the interface, the dashboard where we organize all that process experience into the story of who we are. They're distinct, but they are completely interconnected. So, where does this model ultimately take us? If we follow this map, what's the destination? Well, it's a pretty profound one, and let me tell you, it's not about going back to the way things were before.
The sequence pillar actually unfolds through 5 very distinct phases of mourning. It starts with primary mourning, which is just about facing the raw, undeniable facts of what happened. Then comes memorial, where you grieve the loss of safety, the loss of the world you thought you lived in. Existential is where you actually process the traumatic memory itself. Meta-mourning is a really surprising step. It's grieving the loss of the familiar trauma identity you've lived with. And finally, affective, where you integrate all the wisdom from the trauma so you can finally fully embrace a new future.
And this is the crucial point. Healing in RDST isn't about erasing the past or just getting back to normal, because that world, that person is gone. The real goal is the emergence of something entirely new, post-traumatic wisdom. It's this capacity to live with greater depth, compassion, and resilience because of what you've integrated, not in spite of it.
It all comes down to this: moving from being a character in a story that was written by your trauma to reclaiming the pen for yourself. It's about taking all the raw material of your experience, the pain, the grief, but also the resilience, and consciously authoring a new, more authentic story to live by. This, right here, is the ultimate act of healing and agency.
And that leaves us with this final, really provocative thought that gets to the absolute heart of this entire journey. It's a question not just for therapy, but for life. If our sense of who we are is a story that we both discover and create, then the most important question we can ever ask ourselves is, right now, in this moment, who is holding the pen?